So hello and welcome to the presentation of AstroCamp 2023. My name is Carlos Martins. I'm the scientific director of the camp. And together with Kathy and Sarah, we'll meet in a minute. We'll tell you what the camp is, what kind of activities we do, and specifically how you can apply to this year's edition if you're so interested. So I will start with an explanation of the principles of the camp. So the camp is something that we've been organizing since 2012. It's a joint organization of Center of Astrophysics of the University of Porto and the Paredes de Coura municipality, and it's aimed at high school students, so in the last 3 years of school before university. It's held every year at Paredes de Coura, at the Cordon do Bico Protected Landscape Area. The dates this year are the ones you see on the slide, from the 6th to the 17th of August. So it's a residential camp. And our goals are to identify bright, motivated high school students and use these 3 weeks to give them some more tools, to get them to learn more physics, more astronomy, so beyond the kinds of things that they normally learn in their school classes. So we want to encourage future scientific careers, promote scientific knowledge, and really allow these students to learn as much as they can, as fast as they can in a quiet environment where they'll be surrounded by other students who have their same passion for science as they do. And also allow all these students to network, to talk to each other, to discuss their goals, their aims, their future plans. So in addition to that, there's broader goals of stimulating critical thinking, various other skills that are important, whether you end up doing science some years in the future or pursuing other kinds of careers. So that is our main goal. How do we implement this in practice? So the camp is selective, which means that if you want to participate, you have to go through a selection process. You start by submitting an application, and if you pass a first stage, you'll be interviewed in a second stage, and based on those things, we will decide which students get invited to the camp. And I will explain this a little bit later. One of the principles of the camp is that for students studying in Portugal, the camp has no costs. So we have to find the funding to support these students. For students coming from other countries, there is some additional funding that we can provide. And again, I'll return to this point later on. But in some circumstances, the students will have to pay for a fraction of their costs, either from their funds or their parents' funds, or they can also try to find their own funds from local sources. The camp is organized around a set of activities, some of them scientific, some of them not scientific. And just as a summary, throughout the 3 weeks, you'll have 3 different courses, so 1 course each week, and each course will have 15 hours of lectures, 9 hours of practical classes, so exercise classes, plus 4 hours of written exams spread over the week. In addition, there's other scientific activities. There are stargazing sessions. There are online conversations with various physicists and astronomers and in various stages of their careers. We watch some documentaries. We do some other geek things. So there is a lot of science activities going on. But there are other activities that are more recreational and that to some extent complement the science activities. Every year we do some community service projects. We have some public talks, which may or may not be about science. Some of them are organized by us, some are organized by the Paredes de Coura municipality, so they can invite people not doing science. We have various hiking activities, including one overnight hike to see the Perseids meteor shower, at least if the weather collaborates, and various other games, recreational activities. So, for example, last year we had a chess tournament and so on. But it's also one of our goals that the camp doesn't really end after the 3 weeks. So physically, we'll leave the camp after 3 weeks. But the idea is that we keep interacting after the camp. And there's various post-camp projects that students can do either with their colleagues from each edition, or even with students, with colleagues from previous editions of the camp. So some of these can be done in person, but a lot of them can also be done remotely. And regarding that, and as a way to emphasize that one of the goals of the camp is to provide you with some tools that you can use in your future studies, I want to illustrate that with some of the outcomes from the 2020 edition. So 2020 was a difficult year. We had COVID pandemic going on, and because of that, in that year, we had a hybrid camp. So students from Portugal were physically at the camp. Students from other countries, unfortunately, had to participate remotely, but nevertheless, they managed to participate. And now, 3 years or a bit less after the camp, 4 of these students have already published together 3 peer-reviewed publications. So you see on the slide a group photo of the participants in that edition, and on the right you see the top part of the first page of these articles. So 2 of them have been published. The third one will be published very soon. All of them in important peer-reviewed scientific journals. So this is a way to show you that in addition to learning at the camp, you can continue this path after the 3 weeks, and you'll have tools that a lot of your school colleagues or future university colleagues will not necessarily have. Okay, so before giving the word to Katya and Sarah, let me make a kind of summary of the AstroCamp editions up to now. So the camp started in 2012. In the first 4 editions, it was only for students in Portugal, so only Portuguese students could apply. Then, starting in 2016, we started to accept applications from other countries. And until 2021, the camp lasted 2 weeks. Last year, we changed to a 3-week format. So the statistics that you see on the slide now tell you the fraction of Portuguese and foreign students participating in each of these different formats of the camp, so to speak, and also the fraction of boys and girls and the fraction of students in each of the last 3 years of secondary education, which in Portugal, we call them 10th, 11th, 12th grade. And you see that the numbers are, roughly speaking, balanced. Obviously, in the first 4 years, there was only Portuguese students, no foreign ones. But if you ignore that, the numbers are fairly balanced. But nevertheless, I want to emphasize that there is no quotas for any of these things. There's no quotas for boys and girls. There's no quotas for Portuguese or foreign students. And there's no quotas for students of any of the 3 years. So the only criteria for selection are scientific merit and potential, evaluated by the application and the interview. So it's kind of nice that the numbers balance quite nicely. And in fact, in terms of gender balance, more girls than boys have been to the camp. But this merely reflects the number and the quality of the people who apply. It's not designed or rigged in any way on our side. And the main novelty for this edition, as I will explain, again in a second, is that we will again enlarge the number of countries that are eligible to participate. So I'll come to that in a second. For the moment, I will give the word to Katia and Sarah, so they can explain you a little bit what the edition of 2022 was about.
Hello, everyone. I'm Katia. I was a participant in AstroCamp 2022 edition. Currently, I'm 16 years old. I attend 11th grade, and I am from Vila Nova de Gaia in Portugal. It was my physics teacher that told me about AstroCamp, and I decided to apply since I am a very curious person. I'm fascinated by knowledge, and I have a determination to follow a science-related career, more specifically in astronomy and astrophysics area. My interests include physics and maths, astronomy and astrophysics, coding, and also classical dance. Some projects in which I have participated or I am willing to participate are AstroPrime Mission Space Lab, organized by ESA, and there are 2 pictures of this project in this slide, and also Wilson Chamber, that actually is a project that I heard about in AstroCamp.
Hello, my name is Sára, and I was a participant in last year's edition from Hungary. Currently, I'm 17 years old, and I'm a junior year student in high school. I discovered the camp in an advertisement on social media by Konkoly Observatory, which is a Hungarian observatory in Budapest. And I decided to apply because I'm interested in physics, maths, and especially in astronomy. I also like making astrophotos, and I also enjoy music. I have already participated in some projects that are related to astronomy and physics. For example, the MoonCamp 3D Modeling Challenge, which was organized by ESA, and some other science researches in the field of astronomy.
Now me and Sára are going to talk about our experience during AstroCamp 2022. My general view of the camp includes it being held among the nature, which for me is a perfect place to relax and to focus at the same time. We saw beautiful landscapes and we had contact with different fauna and flora. The little light pollution in Paredes de Coura makes it possible to view the Milky Way with our naked eyes, and we could explore a beautiful night sky in our stargazing sessions. The indoor spaces are very welcoming and cozy, and we have places to study and also play some games. The dorm rooms and bathrooms are very clean, with all the necessary conditions to our day-to-day routines during 3 weeks. The monitors were really friendly and they helped us a lot in studying and in other problems that we might have. During the camp, we did lots of different activities in addition to the classes, and we got to know each other better in these activities, which some will talk about a little more later on. For me, every day at the camp was a challenge where I learned lots of new things and had new experiences, which I am sure that I will remember forever. We had an organized and promising schedule to respect, but we had some time between the activities sometimes, and we also had time to ourselves. It is the perfect place to get some of your deepest questions about the universe answered, the questions that you have asked but no one could answer you yet. Those are perfect for AstroCamp. And you can also ask some other curiosities that you have about the professional life of people in these areas. AstroCamp will help you to better understand what is the way that you want to follow related to science, of course. Some of the activities that we have participated are the public talks, and I enjoy them a lot because we could actually make questions to who was giving the lecture. And if you are curious, you can watch the previous public talks on YouTube. The channel is Município de Paredes de Coura. It's in Portuguese, but you can search for AstroCamp public talks, and I think that will appear to you. There were talks given by monitors or former students, for example. Also, the chats with scientists were something that I enjoyed a lot. For example, we talked to experimental physicists, people that have different professions, from ESO, ESA, or even related to James Webb Telescope. And these were a great time to explore different perspectives and to know more about what we can do in the science area.
For me, the best activity was the student summaries. On each week we've got different books. The first was by Daryl Huff, How to Lie with Statistics, and the second was by Carl Sagan, The Demon Haunted World. It was an activity where we've got chapters in the beginning of the week. And during the spare times, we had to read between 3 or maybe 5 pages long chapters, and we had to memorize them and make a short summary of it. It was a great activity because it improves communication skills, and we've got introduced to different topics. For example, the Demon Haunted World had topics like pseudoscience versus real science, and Daryl Huff's book had data processing informations. We also did a community service. It was a weekly program, and we did different activities. We went to a nursery home where we talked with elderly people, and we played card games with them. We also did some gardening and building repair at the camp's place, and also near the village and in the village we collected garbage, and that's how we made the nature a little bit less unhealthy. Also, as Carlos has already mentioned, we did hiking as well. The longest hike was the Solar System Trail, which is a 16 kilometers long hike. And during the trip, there are stone boards placed near to the roads where we could find information about the planets. And the interesting fact is that the distances between these boards are proportional to the distances between the planets in real life. So the distance between the sun, which was placed at the camp, and Uranus was almost as much as the distance between Uranus and Neptune. So it was a 3-hour-long hike, but it was informative and great as well. We also did shorter hikes. We went sightseeing, and at the night we went sometimes stargazing as well. The camp was far away from crowded and noisy places, so we could meet different cultures as well. That's why I think that this is the ideal place for studying and meeting with people with the similar interests. And also with little phone time, you were not disturbed during studying and social activities. Also, the parents shouldn't worry as well, because every day they get a daily picture, mostly about the students, and also they can contact the monitors anytime they want to.
After the camp, you will have many opportunities in the scientific areas. Of course, if you catch them. One example is the computational project that involves coding with real data and finding the Hubble constant, and it involves also the concept of dark energy. You can also win an internship in Astrophysics Center of Porto University, according to your results in the camp. Of course, after the camp, you can keep in touch with the people that you met. and it happened to me to have less phone dependence after the camp. Now he have some piece of advice if you are thinking about applying to AstroCamp. The first one is don't be afraid of making questions during the camp. It's a big opportunity and you will be with very qualified people. So you use this opportunity.
Also, you should be confident about your English skills because that will not be the hardest part of the camp. So you should not be worried about if you don't speak English fluently because you'll get used to it. And also if it's better for you, you can take dictionary with you. It can be useful during the lectures.
During the camp and also before the camp, you should prioritize your sleeping hours over studying, for example, or other activities, of course, because the days at the camp will require a high energy level from you, and you should take advantage of everything. Of course, you should prepare yourself for the exams in the camp, but there is no need to stress because of them. It is a completely different experience from school, and you should really love what you will be studying at the camp if you want to apply. In conclusion, we recommend you to enjoy this unique experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine and Sarah. So now I will tell you in a bit more detail what you have to do if you want to apply to this year's edition. So first, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the main novelty this year is that we increased the number of eligible countries can apply to the camp. So this year we'll accept applications from students in the last 3 years of pre-university education, which cumulatively in the current academic year are studying and living in one of the 45 countries whose names you see on the slide, and are also national citizens of one of these countries. So you need to fulfill both conditions cumulatively. You can be, for example, a Portuguese citizen studying in France, and that's fine, but you need to satisfy both conditions simultaneously. So the 45 countries are the ones you see on the slide. So there's most countries in Europe. There are 6 countries from North and South America. And for the first time this year, and so this is the novelty, we'll accept applications from 4 countries in Asia and Oceania. So Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea. And we're quite curious to see how many applications we will get from these countries. So this is the eligibility condition. The structure of this year's edition will be more or less the same as last year's. So we'll have camp lasting 3 weeks. We expect to have between 10 and 15 students. That in part depends on the funding we get from our sponsors. In part, it depends on the quality of the applicants. We'll have between 3 and 5 teachers, and all teachers are active researchers. So people with PhDs in physics or astronomy or related areas and currently doing research in these areas. So they can tell you all about the latest developments in their fields. And we'll have between 4 and 5 camp monitors. So this number obviously depends on the number of the students we have. And usually, not necessarily always, but usually the camp monitors are former camp students. So they're people who have been to the camp, they know how it works, they know what kinds of difficulties the students typically have, and therefore they can be your kind of older brothers or older sisters and help you with all the camp activities. As I said previously, for students in Portugal, the camp is free. There are no associated costs. For applicants from other countries, we do have some sources of funding. So ESO, for example, provides a bursary for a student from one ESO country, which covers the camp expenses. It does not cover the travel to and from Porto. And then we also have some agreements with particular entities in particular countries. So in Catalonia, for example, we have an agreement with Fundación Catalunya La Pedrera, whereby students who belong to their Jovens e Ciência program, if they apply and are selected, will have their expenses covered by the program. So here there's no quotas, there's no guaranteed places, and these applicants are treated like anyone else, but if they are selected, then this foundation will cover the students' costs. Equally, with Astronomiska Ungdom in Sweden, we have a similar agreement. If a member of this organization applies and is selected, then Astronomiska Ungdom will cover the students' expenses. And we have some other informal agreements in place, which occasionally we may try to activate and try to get support for these students. Now, one of the other peculiarities of the camp, which I think is very useful, is that the students also participate in deciding the courses that are taken. So at the same time as the applications period for students is open, we have a period in which researchers can propose courses that they would like to teach at the camp. We look at these proposals, we make a preliminary selection, and once we shortlist the students for the interviews, we'll also ask the students to tell us which courses they would prefer to have. So to rank the available courses according to their own preferences. And then we'll take this feedback from the candidates into account when we decide which courses actually take place at the camp. So there is no guarantee that if you are selected, you will take the courses that you prefer. We'll have to have a kind of consensus decision or a majority decision and choose the courses that most students prefer. But in any case, it's one of our principles that we value the students' opinions and we want to have them involved in the selection of the camp courses. Now, the camp is in August, but if you are offered a place at the camp, which will happen in the beginning of June, I'll explain this better in a moment, we expect you to do some preparation activities in July. This mainly means doing some readings, maybe doing some other activities depending on the courses that we'll have. This will not take you too much time necessarily, but it's something that you should do during the month of July, because if you don't, you'll be at a certain disadvantage compared to your colleagues who arrive at the camp with a bit more knowledge. So it's important that you're prepared to set aside a few days during July to prepare for the camp. One of the other activities in the camp that we had since the beginning, with the exception, obviously, of the first year, is an alumni weekend. So in one of the weekends in the middle of the camp, students from previous editions can come to the camp and be there from Friday to Sunday and join the weekend activities. This is also an opportunity for this year's students to meet students from previous editions and find out what they're doing now, get some information on how various university degrees are. We have students doing a lot of different degrees in a lot of different countries. So this is also a good networking opportunity if you want to know what it's like to study physics in Porto or in Madrid or in Munich. You can probably find people who can tell you about these things. Now here you have a snapshot of what a typical day might look like for you during weekdays. So weekends are a little bit different, but on weekdays, so in each week you'll have one course. The theoretical classes of this course will be in the mornings. So there's 10 classes, 10 lectures, each lasting 1.5 hours. In the afternoons, in some of them, you'll have practical classes, so exercise classes, but you also have some other scientific and non-scientific activities. So we'll have online chats with astronomers or physicists, as was already mentioned. We'll have some traditional games, we'll have some hiking, and we'll also have some written exams. So typically, there is a 1 hour written exam late in the afternoon on Tuesday, same thing on Thursday, and then there's a final exam for each course lasting 2 hours on Saturday morning. And in the evenings, sometimes we have public talks, sometimes we stargaze, we watch documentaries, we have games nights, we have the students' summaries, and so on. So the activities vary a little bit from day to day. There can also be changes depending on weather. So if it's raining, if we're unlucky, then we might have to change the day of the hiking and rearrange some of the schedule. But this is a baseline description of what your day will look like. So in the weekends, we do different things. We have community service. In the alumni weekend, we have activities also involving former students and so on. And at the end of each week, we'll give you and your parents a sort of progress report. So typically on Saturday afternoon, you'll know the results of your exams that week. The exams are not the most important thing, but they are part of the camp, and you should work hard to do well in the exams. So your parents will also get these exam grades, and will also get a little description from the teachers and monitors of how you're doing in the camp. You know, if you're well adapted, if you're following the classes all right, or if there's any specific issue. So those weekly reports are sent to the parents, and obviously the parents are welcome to talk to us at any moment, as already been said. Okay, so how do you actually apply? So the applications period is throughout the month of April. So from the 1st to the 30th of April, it's done online on the AstroCamp website. And the eligible students, as I already said, must be currently, so in this academic year, in one of the last 3 years of pre-university education. So typically this means you would have been born sometime in 2005, 6, or 7. There might be slight differences in different countries, but those are ballpark numbers. The only specific quota that we have is that each year we have one student, or we can have one student from the Paredes de Coura municipality, since they are part of the organization. But even for this student, what I'm saying here still applies. So these students still need to send an application with exactly the same deadline and exactly the same rules for everyone else. The only difference is that this student will not be interviewed. So for everyone else, after you send the application, we make a short list of candidates and invite these students for interviews. And the interviews can take place in person, either in Porto, in the Center of Astrophysics, on Saturday, May 27, or in Lisbon at the Pavilion of Knowledge on Sunday, May 28, or alternatively, they can be done via Zoom. So foreign students obviously will be interviewed via Zoom. Portuguese students who live away from Porto and Lisbon, we will in principle invite them for an in-person interview, but you're always welcome to say Lisbon or Porto are too far, and I prefer to be interviewed by Zoom. And that's no problem. It will not affect your chances of being selected. A Zoom interview might be slightly more stressful for the student than an in-person interview. But from our perspective, we work very hard to make sure that the process is fair for everyone and that you're not disadvantaged because you're interviewed by a Zoom rather than in person. So you don't need to worry about that at all. So in order to apply, these are the things that you must provide. So in addition to filling an online form with your personal data, contacts, etc., so you need a motivation letter written by you in English, explaining who you are and what made you decide to apply to the camp and what you expect to get from the camp. You need a letter of recommendation written necessarily by your current physics teacher, and I emphasize the 3 words, current physics teacher. This letter can be written in Portuguese or English. In some cases, if your teacher cannot write any of the two languages, you may get a letter in a different language and have it translated to English. In principle, that's fine, but maybe contact us beforehand just to make sure that you understand what you have to do. You need a school certificate with your latest available grades. So in Portugal, this would be the second term grades, so the grades that you get around Easter. In other countries, you may get grades at different times of the year. The rule is the latest grade certificate you have. But again, if you're not sure what this means in your specific case, in your country, just send us an email and we'll try and sort it out and tell you. Optionally, you can also include additional documentations, in particular certificates of your participation in other relevant scientific activities like astronomy Olympiads, physics Olympiads, these kinds of things. And importantly, if you're not yet 18, you also need a signed document. So you'll find a template on the application form. So an authorization from your parents, so authorizing you to apply. And notice that the under 18 rule refers to the moment where you apply. So let's say, for example, that your 18th birthday is on the 1st of May this year. Then if you are selected to the camp, by the time the camp happens, you'll be 18 and you don't need your parents' authorization to apply. But if your birthday is on the 1st of May this year, when you apply, which is in April, you will still be 17, which means that legally we need your parents' authorization to be able to evaluate your application. So if you submit your application without this authorization, your application will be automatically rejected. We will not even look at it. So make sure you understand rules like this. So when you submit the application, which you do online, you can just submit a scanned version, so a digital version of this authorization, but we also need the paper version of this authorization. So you also need to send that by post. And we need to receive this original document at KU, so at Center for Astrophysics in Porto, by the 15th of May. Again, this is important. If we don't have that, then your application will be automatically dropped. Okay, so one other important point regarding this, the April 30 deadline also applies to the letter of recommendation. Now, when you submit the application, you don't submit the recommendation letter. What you put in the form is the name and the email of the teacher that will write your recommendation letter. Obviously, you should speak to this teacher beforehand and tell him or her that you're applying and that is supposed to provide the letter. But in your application, you just provide the name and email and school of this teacher. And at the moment where you submit the application, our database will send an automatic email to that teacher saying that this student has submitted an application, has nominated you as referee, and explaining how the teacher should write and send the letter. So make sure that the teacher knows about this and knows that the deadline is April 30. So don't send the application at the last minute, because that will give the teacher very little time to send the letter. Having said that, we are reasonable people, and if you submit your application 5 minutes before the deadline, which we don't recommend for lots of reasons, but if we do that, we're not going to give your teacher 9 minutes to write and send the letter. Maybe we'll wait 24 hours, so if the application comes on the last day, but not more than that. But on the morning of the 2nd of May, at most, we start looking at the applications, and anything that is incomplete is rejected, and that's it. So make sure you know about this deadline and make sure your teacher knows about this deadline. So in the first step, as I said already, we make a short list and invite people for interviews, and typically we send these invitations until May 15th. So We might wait until May 15 to make sure that we receive the parent authorization forms. If we do not receive an invitation by May 15, that unfortunately means that your application was not kept for the interviews and you will not be interviewed. The interviews are at the end of May, and so after the interviews, we think a bit more about who to offer places to, and that's always a difficult decision. And if you are offered a place at the camp, you will receive an email, so an invitation to the camp essentially, on or before the 5th of June. So here, I don't have an exact date. I don't really know how long it will take to decide, but at most by the 5th of June, if you're offered a place, you should receive an email. If you receive this email, there will still be some additional steps that you need to do in order to confirm your participation. So be aware, this is more than just replying to that email and saying, yes, I will come. There'll be some more paperwork for you to finish, also for your parents to fill and send back if you're not yet 18. So there's more steps to be done, and it's important that you do them quickly because on our side, we also have some heavy logistics to take care of. So the rule here, and this is in the regulations, if you're offered a place by June the 5th, you must confirm your participation by June the 9th. So replying to the email and providing the additional information that we ask for. If we don't reply in good time, we may assume that for some reason your plans change and you're not interested to coming to the camp anymore, and then we'll just offer your place to someone else. So the camp is a residential camp, so all students and monitors stay at the camp for 3 weeks. Teachers stay at the camp at least 1 week, but in no circumstances is partial participation allowed. So you must arrive at the camp on specified first day, you cannot arrive later, and you can only leave at the end of the camp. You cannot leave early. So this is a 3-week commitment, which I understand is a long time, especially at a holiday period, but that's your part of the deal. You must commit for these 3 weeks. As I said, travel between your home and the meeting point, which is in the Viana do Castelo training bus station, within continental Portugal is covered by us if it's done by public transport. So in particular for students coming from abroad and flying to Porto, the transportation from Porto Airport to the meeting point is covered by us, and you'll have camp teachers or monitors waiting for you at the airport. For foreign students, we cannot cover flights, so they need to cover them, or they can be covered by some local sponsors. And in the cases where we cannot fund these students, we don't have enough funds, the maximum cost that we will ask students to pay will be 400 euro. So this is the maximum cost. Potentially it could be lower, but in any case, it's the maximum. And if you are asked to pay this cost, you should pay it by bank transfer by the end of June. You can, if you're offered a place, you can try and find local support. And in that case, we're happy to write a letter saying that you've been offered a place at the camp and there's an associated cost and so on. So we'll support you as much as you can in getting the funding that you need. And we try very hard to ensure that funding is never a reason for someone not to participate. So in terms of time commitment, what is meant is at the bottom part of the slide. So all the students must arrive at the meeting point, Viana do Castelo, before 4 p.m. on Sunday, August 6th. And we will be back at that meeting point in the morning of Sunday, August 27, a little bit before noon. So if you are in Portugal and are planning to travel to Viana do Castelo by train or by bus, these are the scheduled times that you should have in mind. As I said already, if you're flying into Portugal or if you're in the Azores or Madeira Islands and fly to continental Portugal, you should fly to Porto. You tell us when you're flying. Obviously, the flights should be compatible with these meeting point times. But once we know your flights, we'll make sure that we have people waiting for you at the airport and then accompanying you back to the airport at the end of the camp. Now, when you receive these invitations, either for interviews or when you offered a place at the camp, the email address sending these invitations is always the AstroCamp email. So astrocamp@astro.up.pt. Occasionally, we had people telling us that these emails get to their spam folder. This doesn't happen very often, but it has happened once or twice. So you might want to ensure that messages from this email are in your recognized contacts list, so they don't end up inadvertently in spam. So we're close to the end of this presentation. So let me summarize a little bit what you should expect from the camp. Well, first, you should expect 3 weeks with very little internet or mobile phones. So there's only 1 hour contact period twice a week where you can talk to your parents or your friends. All the rest of the time, you will not have your mobile phones. If there's any emergency, we'll contact your parents. And if there's any family emergency, your parents can contact us. But in normal circumstances, you'll spend 3 weeks without internet or mobile phone. So which, in my view, is a good thing that we can discuss that. You should expect 24 hours of theoretical and practical classes and 4 hours of exams per week. So it should be obvious that this is not a 3-week holiday. So we should expect to work harder than you do for your normal school classes. But on the other side, you should also expect to learn a lot more than you normally do in your everyday classes, and we'll try to push you as hard as you can go. So we'll try to teach you as much as you think you're capable of learning in this time period. And we'll try to make life easy for you by providing you a setting that is as calm and away from stress and light pollution as we possibly can. And we'll try and give you the kinds of courses that you prefer to have. So you'll be involved in the choice of these courses, as I already mentioned. And you'll be surrounded by other students and monitors and teachers who are equally passionate about the subject as you are, and we can all learn a lot from each other, and specifically, and I think this is something that you don't usually get in your everyday school activities, you get to learn how science is done, and you get to learn it from people who are actually doing science nowadays. So I think this is a very important opportunity that most people only get much later in university, and this will also prepare you for your future career, whether it's a career in science, or it's a career in engineering, or it's a career in anything else. There's lots of transferable skills that will try to get you to learn at the camp that will be important and useful for you for the rest of your life. So let me summarize just another time the key dates. So applications are in the month of April. By May 15, you should receive an invitation by email for an interview. So if you don't hear from us until May 15, that will unfortunately mean your application will not be successful. The interviews are on the weekend of May 27 and 28, either in Porto or Lisbon or online, preferably by Zoom, but you can also use Skype if you have a specific preference for that. The interviews have to be necessarily during this weekend. So if you're thinking of applying, try to keep this weekend as free as you can. We'll have a lot of interviews. So when we contact you, we'll propose a specific day and time. If you're not available at that specific day and time, we can try to rearrange your interview for a slightly different time. But we'll be interviewing 30-something people typically. So our weekend will be very, very full. So rearranging times might be difficult. So on your side, try to keep your weekend as free as possible and try to be as flexible as possible. I don't mind interviewing someone at 7 a.m., at least if it's done by Zoom. I'm not coming to Kaup in person for that at 7 a.m. But I don't mind doing it at 7 a.m. or 11 p.m. If that's your only option, I can adjust to that. But the interviews have to be done necessarily during that weekend, also because of fairness to all candidates. By June 5th, places will be offered, again, by email. You need to confirm if you're offered a place by June 9th, and confirm by completing the necessary paperwork. So it will be different depending on whether you're 18 already or under 18, but in any case, there's some paperwork to be done. If there's any payments to be done either by you or by your sponsor, so for foreign students, this should be done by the end of June. And the camp itself will be from the 6th to the 27th of August. So at the bottom of the slide, you see the AstroCamp website. There's a Portuguese and an English version, so you can use whichever you want. So all the information will be there, including the camp regulations. And I strongly encourage you to read the camp regulations. So even if you understood everything we said in this video and are completely decided to apply, you should still read the camp regulations in detail. Make sure you understand everything that is there. Make sure you understand what you have to do to apply, when you have to do it. And if something is unclear, or if you just want some additional information that we didn't provide here, or that is not specifically mentioned in the regulations or in the rest of the website, just feel free to contact us. There's a dedicated email, which is astrocamp@astro.up.pt. We check that email regularly, even now, and during the applications period, we'll certainly check it every day. So whatever question you have, you should get an answer within 24 hours. If it's questions about logistics, what kinds of documents or grade certificates you should provide, try not to leave them for the last minute, because bureaucratic issues might not be easy for us to answer quickly. We might need to check with someone else. So if you can ask these potentially difficult questions bureaucratically early on, that will make our life easier, and that therefore it will also make your life easier. But in any case, if there's any question, feel free to contact us, and we'll do our best to answer as clearly as we can and as fast as we can. And with that, we can stop. So I look forward to receiving a lot of applications. Obviously, the more applications we have, the more difficulty we have in deciding who to select for the camp. But those are the kinds of difficulties we like to have. So I look forward to receiving your applications, and I look forward to seeing many of you in August.